The good news about finding housing for travelers and expats is that there are a lot of choices. There's a lot of availability and a lot of variety. The bad news about finding housing in Mexico is that I don't have any special secret method for you. It's a matter of looking to see what's available and finding what's right for you. But I can give you some tips about how to negotiate and find what is right for you. Whether you're looking for a beachside condo or a casita by the lake like mine, there are some great choices out here. Like most places in the world, Mexico has a variety of accommodations. There are detached houses, which could be modern or colonial style, family homes, sometimes shared by a few other people. Apartments and condominiums are very popular among expats. Many are brand new and decked out with modern appliances. Young professionals sometimes go for shared housing or room rental to meet people and save money at the same time. And then there are beautiful hacienda-style countryside mansions, bigger houses with extensive gardens in the countryside. They're often located near a lake, beach, or mountainside, and there are some really gorgeous ones here in Mexico. The availability of furnished rooms, apartments, and houses in Mexico is much larger than I found in the United States. I've had no problem finding short and long-term rentals furnished with everything you need, even with my 2 big dogs. In Mexico, a furnished accommodation usually requires no extra deposit, although they might be slightly more expensive than an empty home. You won't need to buy any appliances or furniture. As a result, many travelers and expats staying short-term prefer furnished apartments. Having said that, affordable furniture, both new and used, is easy to find in many places here. I've not investigated, but I've heard that having custom furniture built here can be a good option and it's affordable. I would have loved to have some of my things with me when I knew I was going to move to Mexico. And with a temporary residency visa, you are allowed to import your household's goods, furniture and goods, one time tax-free, I understand. But the cost is very prohibitive to hire a moving company or hire a truck yourself. It's complicated with customs. So I chose to leave my furniture behind or get rid of it. I've so far just rented fully furnished accommodations. The advantages of short-term rentals, mainly I used Airbnb, are that you don't have to take care of any other bills like utilities. You don't get a bill for electric and internet and water and gas. It's all in one. So that's the advantage of a short-term rental. Also, you don't have to buy any household products. Like I haven't bought toilet paper in 5 months. So there is a little bit of cost savings there. But in the long run, long-term stays are much less expensive than short-term stays. So keep that in mind as you're looking for temporary rentals in Mexico. If you stay up to 4 weeks, you can get a hefty discount. I was happy to stay in a couple of our rentals for 4 weeks each. This allowed us to really get to know a town, really get a feel of the area and settle in, and I really like that. Plus, on the cost and expense side, it's a lot cheaper when you can do a long stretch like that versus 1 week at a time. So when I'm talking about long-term rentals, and usually in Mexico, I find that they mean 6 months to a year. The least I paid for a 1 week rental on Airbnb was $180. That was really good. The most I paid for an Airbnb for 1 week in Mexico was over $600. And if you spend any time looking at Airbnb, the website, you will see that it goes up from there. You can spend a lot more money than that. So I'm considering myself a pretty frugal traveler. Taxes and Airbnb fees also add up. So if I was ever to go back to one of these rentals that I liked, I would probably approach the owner offline or on the phone so that maybe we can make a deal without all that. In most cases, I negotiated with the owner and asked for a discount because I'm just one person and I usually book these rentals kind of last minute. So I think the owners knew if they didn't have a booking in their calendar by now, they probably were going to have an empty house. So usually I think most owners would rather have a discounted price than an empty house. And I'd say maybe 85% of the owners I talked to gave me a discount, so that's great. If they didn't want to, they didn't have to. There were plenty of people who just didn't respond or just said no, and a few others who would counter with their own offer, and I could either take it or decline. So there's room for negotiation out there. Don't be shy about it. It really helps if you have positive reviews on Airbnb, especially if you're bringing pets. I found that if an owner is too concerned about my dogs, I'd really just rather make a deal with someone else, because the fact is I have 2 large dogs, and if they're worried about it, I don't want to worry them, and I'd rather deal with someone else who's more relaxed about it. I try to get up all the fur before we leave, and I've never had any damages from my dogs or myself in an Airbnb rental, but I have been asked to pay a little bit more for cleaning fees on occasion, which I'm happy to do. I would suggest approaching an owner with the phrase something like, would you consider this discounted price for your lovely rental because of whatever, and then give them an idea of what your budget is, because you don't want them to have to guess. Very few owners said no, and I'm very lucky to have had many nice rentals. For long-term rentals in Mexico, there are many websites you could look at and view to get an idea of prices and the neighborhoods and make contact with owners and agents. But don't worry about writing all these down right now. I've made a list of links for you in the notes below the video, or you can visit my website for lots of good information. For me, I got this first long-term rental in Mexico through a Facebook group for expats in Morelia. It was about 3 or 4 weeks before I even got to the area, and I started looking for long-term rentals. And I found 2 I was very interested in, both coincidentally on Facebook groups. So let Facebook Marketplace or Facebook groups be one of the first places you look. You can also rent accommodations through real estate agencies. Agents' fees come from the landlords paying them a commission. Tenants don't pay the fees. There are lots of different companies offering furnished and unfurnished apartments and homes. To find these, go online and search for Casa en Renta and the location where in Mexico you want to stay. If you're already in the area, it's a good idea to walk around your preferred neighborhoods to scout out rentals in person. Look for for rent signs or se renta signs by agencies or individuals. Since my Spanish is not yet fluent, using an app like WhatsApp with translation available via text has worked for me. Keep in mind that landlords all over the world may speak about their properties in a glowing light and forget to tell you about some of the negatives. That's why it's always advisable to visit a property before you agree to rent it, especially in a long-term situation. Let's say you really rely on quality and consistent internet, but when you arrive, you find it spotty at best, or the description of the location isn't quite what you had in mind. It's really a good idea, if you possibly can, to rent a property for a few days before you make a long-term commitment. Also, that way, it's possible to deal directly with an owner and possibly get a better deal. Now it's school mom time. Beware of overpaying for rent in Mexico. A lot of times, first-time foreigners coming to rent a place in Mexico will overpay their rent based on what they're used to in their home country. But prices here for rentals are aligned with the local residents' income, and local residents would like to keep it that way. So beware of overpaying for rent. Try to get a gauge for how much things should cost by doing searches and talking to people. Many landlords in some cities require tenants to provide a third-party guarantor, sometimes referred to as an aval, or an insurance policy, to pay the rent if the tenant defaults. This is unfortunate and makes it much harder and more expensive and complicated for the tenant, but it covers the owner if you turn out to be a deadbeat tenant. You might be able to negotiate a larger deposit in place of these policies, or in rural areas such as mine, it's not done that way as much. He pesters her until she says, okay, you want to play? And then she bites his ear really hard until he submits. And she has to be rough on him because he never stops. 𝐥𝐫𝐸𝐻𝐿. I went with a new friend to see a few houses for sale in Pátzcuaro. I have no experience buying property in Mexico, and if you are in the market, I recommend talking to a lot of people, including a real estate professional like Liliana, who gave us the tour today.
Liliana Gonzalez.
Good.
Hello.
And she has been showing us around with her partner all day long. It's been wonderful. The first house was this beautiful new construction house not far from central Pátzcuaro. Where you live is really important. It's where you make meals and you lay your head to rest. I think it's crucial that you're comfortable, that you feel secure, and hopefully you love where you live. I hope you've gotten something out of this video seeing how I find my rentals. And if you have any questions, please leave in the comments.